The mind can be either your worst enemy or your most powerful ally. You choose. Many people wake up with their thoughts already in control, pulling them into worry, distraction, overthinking, and doubt before the day even begins. That pattern keeps them stuck. If you don't take command of your mind, it will keep steering you the wrong way. It will invent excuses. It will seek comfort. It will replay the same limiting thoughts that held you back yesterday. But when you learn to manage your thinking, everything shifts. You stop reacting. You stop wasting energy. You begin to make clear choices and move with intent. In this script you will learn how to reclaim your mental control step by step, how to think more effectively, focus more deeply, and stay steady regardless of what happens around you. This is not hype. This is about developing the mental strength real success requires, and it begins now. If you want to succeed, you must take one thing seriously above all else, your mind. Success does not begin with a job, a bank balance, a degree, or connections. It begins with how you handle your thoughts. If your mind is chaotic, your life will follow. So today decide to take command of your thinking. Don't merely talk to it or hope it will behave. Command it. Most people never pay attention to the content of their thinking. Their minds run from one pointless thought to the next. They worry about things that do not matter. They compare themselves to other people. They recycle fear-based stories on a loop. They let their minds drag them through the day like a leash, and then they wonder why they feel weak, unclear, or insecure. If your head is full of thoughts that sap your strength, how can you expect to feel powerful? You must stop that cycle. Start each morning by choosing what deserves your attention. Not every thought merits your time. Some arrive simply to drain you, others are there to shrink your sense of possibility. Recognize these intruders and remove them quickly. Your brain is like a machine that will do what it has been trained to do. If you train it to chase distractions, it will chase distractions. If you train it to react emotionally to minor difficulties, it will respond that way all day. But if you train it to focus on your goals, values, and priorities, it will begin to work for you rather than against you. Training the mind is not a one-time event. You must practice daily. Guide it, correct it, and refuse to let it wander without permission. When an unhelpful thought appears, stop and say to yourself, "This is not helping me. This is not moving me forward. This is wasting my energy." Then shift the thought and replace it with something useful. Not empty positivity for its own sake, but practical, focused thinking that reminds you of what matters right now. That is discipline. Discipline is not only about doing the work, it starts with thinking correctly. You cannot expect to take smart actions if your head is clogged with noise. Clear that space. Make room for strength, not weakness. Make room for clarity, not confusion. There are thoughts that propel you and thoughts that hold you back. Some feed growth, others drain it. You must be wise enough to tell the difference and brave enough to choose the constructive ones every single day. Begin by becoming aware. Notice where your thoughts go during the day. See what keeps returning. Notice what leaves you feeling drained or lost. That mental clutter needs to be removed. If the thought does not make you stronger, it does not belong. If it does not help you develop, it is keeping you stuck. Next, create structure. Don't let your mind wander all day without direction. Give it anchors. Write your priorities and your goals down. Give your mind a list to return to when it starts drifting. The mind needs anchors or it will chase whatever passes by. Also stop feeding your mind with junk. Just as your body weakens on poor food, your thinking becomes flimsy when you fill it with low-quality input. If your day is mostly scrolling and consuming nonsense, your brain starts to treat nonsense like importance. Be selective. Choose what you watch and who you listen to. Protect what you allow into your head. Treat your mental space like something valuable worth guarding. Build strong mental rituals. Like personal hygiene or exercise, thought discipline improves through repetition. Start modestly. Spend 5 focused minutes each day on meaningful thinking. Sit with your goals and ask yourself what matters most in this moment. Train your mind to return to clarity. Over time this will become easier, your attention will sharpen and you will stop pursuing what does not matter. You will become quicker at dismissing distractions and refuse to let them run the show. Challenge your thinking. Not every thought that surfaces is true. Some are born of fear, some from past experiences, and some are simply incorrect. Ask yourself, is this true? Is this useful? If not, let it go. Don't argue with it or invite it in. Replace it with something helpful, something that strengthens and moves you forward. Real success is not the product of luck. It springs from mental control, the ability to remain locked in while others lose focus, to conserve energy when others are drained, and to think clearly when life grows messy. That difference is what sets people apart. It is not who you know or where you studied but how you think, how you react under pressure, and how steady you remain. Every day your mind will present many paths. One leads toward your goals. The rest lead to worry, anger, regret, or distraction. Which path will you choose? You are the one who must say, not today. Today I will be focused. Today I will be disciplined. Today I am in control. When you command your thinking in this way, everything changes. You stop reacting and begin to respond. You stop overthinking and start doing. You stop squandering time and start building. You stop doubting and start trusting. Mental control gives you your power back. If you are fed up with feeling stuck or scattered, begin here. If you want to feel strong again, begin here. Stop chasing useless thoughts that have already stolen enough of your time, energy, and life. Now take over. Lead your mind. Build the life you know you are capable of. Start with one thought, then another, and keep going. That is how you win. That is how you momentum audiobooks. That is how you succeed. If you want to reach your goals, you must teach your brain to stay on what truly matters. This is a skill most people never develop. They begin the day with good intentions, but a small interruption steals their attention and their focus never returns. A single message, a notification, a worry, or a distraction can pull them away, and before they know it their time, energy, and focus are scattered. That is how years get wasted without anyone noticing. They remain busy but unproductive. They think a lot but rarely about things that actually move them forward. To change your life, you have to choose to train your mind to stay on what counts, not just sometimes but every day. The brain follows patterns. If you teach it to switch tasks every few minutes, it will keep doing that. If you feed it shallow, fast content all day, it will crave that pace. But if you teach it how to stay still and concentrate on one thing for a long time, it will learn to do that too. That does not happen by accident. You must take deliberate steps to control where your attention goes. Begin by asking a decisive question: what really matters right now? Not what is loud, not what is urgent, but what will actually push your life forward. What helps you become the person you want to be? Once you answer, remain there. Give that task your full attention. Do not let the mind escape the present simply because something else appears. That is how mental strength is built. It is the ability to say no to small temptations and yes to the big opportunities. That choice separates those who progress from those who stay confused and overwhelmed. When your brain wants to scroll, remind it what is important. When it wants to drift, bring it back. When it wants to jump to the next shiny thing, pause and return. Most people give up because they assume focus should be effortless. It does not feel natural at first because the world constantly offers new things to look at, react to, and worry about. But resisting those impulses builds a quiet power inside you, a steady sense of direction. Practice staying focused even when the world is loud, when people call, when problems appear. Real mental control shows up under pressure. Anyone can concentrate when life is calm. Strength is shown when you can hold that attention while chaos swirls around you. Recognize what triggers your distraction. Is it your phone? Is it fear? Is it the habit of comparing yourself to others? Be honest. If your phone is the weak point, put it away while you work. If fear pulls you, write down what you are afraid of and test those fears with facts. If other people's lives distract you, stop observing and start living your own. You cannot afford to keep giving your mind away to things that do not help you grow. Create a routine that keeps your brain anchored. Start each day reviewing what truly matters. Choose one main goal for the day, not 10. Give your best effort to that single priority. If your attention drifts, bring it back. If you are interrupted, return quickly without shame. Focus is built through consistent returns, not perfection. Allow your brain time to recover too. This is not about being unyielding every hour. It is about knowing when to focus and when to rest. A rested mind focuses better, so plan short breaks and purposeful recovery rather than forcing clarity through exhaustion. Protect your focus from emotional overload. Emotions can hijack your day. Anger, anxiety, and doubt are strong, and if you let them take control, your entire schedule can collapse. When feelings rise, pause rather than react. Breathe, notice what you are feeling, and then ask if that emotion helps you move forward. If not, choose a different response. Train your brain to work for you by teaching it that success requires focus and that what matters comes first. Practice this during chaos. Train your mind to return to your priorities even when the world is loud. Someone else's drama or a sudden problem should not force you off course. Build the habit of returning to what matters again and again. When you do, distractions lose their power. The temptation to look away becomes weaker. You gain a steady, focused mind that consistently creates meaningful results. Focus is not about staring at a single task for hours. It is about keeping your attention where it will do the most good and noticing when it drifts. The practice is simple: notice the drift, and bring your attention back without judgment. Many people are unaware they are distracted. They lose hours to conversations that don't matter, to chasing opinions that don't help, and to reacting to problems that were never theirs to solve. By the end of the day they are worn out, but not because of meaningful work, because of fragmented thinking and misplaced attention. To break that cycle, start building awareness. Observe your patterns of distraction. Notice the moments you lose the thread of your work and write them down if you must. The more you learn about your attention habits, the more control you gain. Once you know your weak points, create simple systems to defend your focus. Turn off notifications during deep work. Use a timer and commit to a single task for that window. Put a short morning plan in place so your attention is settled before the day begins. Take intentional breaks so you don't seek distraction out of fatigue. Sometimes the distraction is not external. It is a worry, a memory, a hypothetical future that pulls you away. When that happens, ask yourself, am I thinking something useful right now? Is this helping me act or simply making me overanalyze? If the thought is not useful, shift it to something concrete, grounded in the present, not hypothetical what-ifs. Decide what your mind is allowed to focus on and repeat it every morning. Make it simple: today my focus is this one thing. Not several, but one. When life pulls you away, do not react emotionally or judge yourself. Quietly return. That habit of calm returning builds strength. It is not about forceful discipline but about steady, silent choices. Do not wait for perfect conditions. You do not need complete silence or flawless motivation to stay on task. You need a commitment. People who learn to stay focused regardless of circumstances move ahead because they do not wait for mood or permission. That kind of focus builds confidence. Every return to focus reinforces your ability to control attention. You learn that you are not a victim of your environment. You are the director. That identity grows stronger each time you choose to return. Other people may try to drag you into their speed and problems, but you owe your attention to your purpose, not to every interruption. Your best work, your next level, lives where your focus is most consistent. You get there by locking in while others drift. Focus becomes a true strength not through force but through repeated quiet choices. Win the small battles of attention every moment and you win the bigger prize of consistent progress. Control your attention and you control your future. Keep your focus tight. Protect it carefully. Do not give it away casually. You are building something valuable and the only way to complete it is to preserve your attention moment by moment. Every time you bring your mind back to what matters, you are winning. Stay committed. Stay calm. Stay with your chosen direction and you will see the results. You will become someone who leads their life with clarity and intent. You will momentum audiobooks. Decide what you think about and stop drifting forever. To build a resilient life you must begin here. Choosing your thoughts sounds basic, but most people never do it. They let their minds wander without any direction. One moment they're imagining success, the next they're stuck in doubt. The mind never rests. If you do not lead it, it won't go anywhere useful. Once you stop choosing your thoughts, your mind starts to drift, and drifting brings confusion, delay, and weakness. You lose control of your time, your mood, your energy, and eventually the shape of your life. What sets people who succeed apart is not always talent or opportunity but how they think. Successful people decide how they will think. They define what thoughts they will allow and which ones they will reject. They don't leave this to chance or habit. They wake up with intention and say, "This is my direction. This is what I focus on." That is discipline, and it is something anyone can build. To stop drifting, first take responsibility for your internal dialogue. No one else will do it for you. Life throws distractions, opinions, and problems into your path, but you choose where your mind lands. You decide whether you will dwell on defeat or work on possibility. You decide whether you will replay the past or create the future. Ownership begins with that choice. Remember that every thought either builds you up or tears you down. Your mind becomes what you repeatedly allow it to focus on. If you let it return to worry, it becomes fearful. If you let it fixate on setbacks, it becomes hesitant. If you feed it negativity, it becomes bitter. But if you deliberately cultivate thoughts of belief, courage, and direction, your whole life shifts. Your actions gain power, your mood improves, and momentum returns. Thinking without intention is wasted energy. It's like walking in circles, tiring and unproductive. Give your thinking purpose. Decide what you want to create each day and train your mind to follow that lead. The brain learns through repetition. The more you focus on what matters, the more natural it becomes. This is mental training, not willpower. Noise will always exist, your mind will create reasons to stop, fear will whisper, and doubt will reappear. Those are normal. The difference is you do not accept every thought that surfaces. Not every mental impression is truth. You can observe a thought and choose whether to give it weight. Ask, is this helping me move forward? If not, let it go and replace it. Build clarity by creating a vision. Know the person you want to become and the life you intend to make. Use that vision as a filter for every thought. Ask, does this align with who I am becoming? If not, it has no place in your mind. Protect your thinking like you protect your future because it determines your future. Drifting happens when you become passive and let your environment decide for you. Social media, fear, and others' dramas are not worthy directors of your attention. You can step back, pause, and choose to think for yourself. That is real power, choosing rather than reacting. Create daily thinking time, even if it's only 10 minutes. Sit with a blank page and ask potent questions. What do I want today to look like? What one thing matters most? What thought patterns might be holding me back? Writing these answers clears mental space. Clean thoughts yield sharp actions, messy thoughts produce messy outcomes. Pay attention to your environment as well. Who are you listening to and what are you consuming? Surroundings shape thinking. If your environment is full of noise and drama, your mind will match it. You don't need more input, you need higher quality input. Guard your mental bandwidth. Choose fewer things and choose them better. Success requires clear thinking, and clear thinking takes attention. You cannot expect great results while operating on autopilot. Pull your mind out of fog by deciding how you will use your mental energy. Ask yourself honestly, am I wasting it on things that don't matter? Am I repeating thoughts that slow me down? If the answer is yes, make a change. Start selecting thoughts that help you build. Build a mindset that supports you rather than works against you. This is not about perfection, you will have off days and old thoughts will return. The skill is in returning, notice the drift, correct the course, and keep going. That is where strength grows. Notice the patterns of drift and return to focus. When you encounter doubt, shift to belief. When you feel fear, move to courage. Each return is practice, and practice rewires the brain. Over time you won't need constant effort to hold your attention. Your mind will learn to follow the direction you set. You will be calmer, sharper, and more confident, not because everything around you is easier but because your inner world is stronger. This clarity is available now. It is not locked behind some exclusive program. Anyone willing to take responsibility for their thoughts can access it. You don't have to keep repeating old cycles. One thought at a time, one choice at a time, you can recover your mind. That is how you take control and begin to build a life that actually works. Keep choosing to think with intention and watch the effect compound. This is how you stop drifting and start intentionally shaping the future you want. This is how you grow. Every morning your mind stands at a choice. You can take control or allow the day to steer you. How you begin the morning shapes the rest of the hours more than most people realize. Those first moments determine your mindset, your behavior, and your outcomes. What you think when you open your eyes, what you decide to focus on, and what you tell yourself sets the tone for the whole day. That is why you must reset your mind each morning with intention. You cannot simply roll out of bed and hope things go well. You must choose the kind of day you will create and give your thinking a direction before the world has a chance to hijack it. Your mind does not start the day empty. It carries over whatever state you left it in the night before. If you fell asleep worried or discouraged, your brain will begin the morning with the same weight unless you interrupt that momentum. The reset is the interruption. It is a deliberate step you take every morning to clear out the noise and align your thoughts with what matters. This habit is not something to do occasionally. It is a daily discipline you commit to without exception, because taking control of the beginning of your day is how you keep control throughout it. The first task upon waking is not to check your phone or answer messages. It is to pause and decide who you will be today. Ask yourself what matters and what can be ignored. Reaffirm your priorities. Remind yourself of the few things that actually move your life forward. This act of clarity prepares your mind to perform instead of react. When you reset with intention, you give your brain a fresh starting point, and you do not allow yesterday's stress or last night's worries to leak into your decisions. You do not need an elaborate routine to do this. You only need presence and a few minutes of focused thought. Sit up, breathe, and ask 4 simple questions. Who do I want to be today? What actions will reflect that person? What distractions must I ignore? What will I focus on right now? Answer honestly and then lock that direction into your mind. This short ritual sets a standard for how you will move, think, and respond during the day. Starting with intention also prevents you from being pulled into other people's agendas. Most people lose control because they begin by reacting to what arrives first. A message, a problem, or a crisis shows up and they chase it. Before long the whole day is consumed by items that were never aligned with their priorities. You will not let that happen. You will begin by deciding your priorities and giving your attention to what you chose. That single decision changes how you respond to interruptions. It does not remove them, but it gives you a framework to decide whether to engage and how to engage. When you cultivate this morning reset, you also build resilience. You carry a steady center into the day. You become less dependent on external conditions to feel calm and focused. You do not wait for the world to be agreeable. Instead, you bring clarity into chaos. This is not about forcing positivity. It is about responsibility. Motivation is inconsistent. Responsibility is stable. When you decide to lead your own mind, you stop waiting for a mood and start following a plan. This practice matters especially on the days that are going well. It is tempting to skip the reset when you feel good, but consistency is the point. Resetting only during struggles trains your brain to be reactive. Resetting every morning trains your brain to be proactive. That steady practice builds a habit that holds up under pressure and keeps you clear when challenges arrive. A morning reset also helps you make better decisions. When you begin from clarity, your choices come from intention rather than impulse. Your reactions become measured and your actions more consistent. You waste less energy on trivial concerns. Your confidence rises because your daily behavior aligns with the standards you set in those first moments. That alignment is how lasting progress is created. Do not confuse the reset with rigidity. You will still need to adapt throughout the day, but adaptation should be guided by your priorities, not by every loud demand that shows up. The reset is your reference point. When something unexpected happens, you ask whether it aligns with what you decided to protect that morning. If it does, accept it and act. If it does not, defer it or decline it without guilt. You will have fewer regrets because your day reflected what you valued from the outset. Slowing down at the start of the day is not a sign of weakness. It is a demonstration of control. It is a moment of leadership over your inner world. You are teaching your mind what to focus on, what to ignore, and how to respond. Over time, those small choices create a powerful mental habit that organizes your life. You will find that distractions have less hold, your energy is more consistent, and your capacity to handle stress grows because you began each day by choosing your direction. If you want a practical format, try this short sequence each morning. Breathe deeply for 60 seconds. Name one word that represents who you want to be today. Visualize a single action that would prove that choice. Decide which two things you will protect from distraction. Close by saying a brief affirmation of responsibility and then begin. This does not require perfect discipline. It requires a decision repeated day after day. The repetition trains your mind to seek clarity from the start instead of wandering into noise. Remember that the reset is not about pretending everything is fine. It is about deciding how you will face reality. When problems arise, you will not be surprised because you prepared your mind to respond with purpose. You will not be consumed by emotion because you practiced returning to what matters before emotion could take over. That makes your responses stronger and your work more consistent. Make this a non-negotiable. When you wake, do not give your mind away to the first thing that demands it. Take a few clear minutes and set your intention. Protect that intention as the day unfolds. If you keep this commitment, you will notice a steady improvement in your focus, mood, and results. You will carry an inner stability that others will mistake for confidence because they do not see the daily work you did to earn it. The reset is that work. Start now. When tomorrow comes, use your first minutes to lead your mind instead of letting it lead you. Begin every day by taking the wheel. Decide your direction and then move into the day with purpose. That is how powerful days are made, how clear minds are built, and how real success begins. That is how you momentum audiobooks. Every day brings distractions that try to pull your attention away from what really matters. Some of these interruptions are obvious, loud, and demanding. Others are quiet and sneaky, arriving as a thought, a memory, or a worry that slips in and takes you someplace else. Regardless of their form, distractions share one purpose: they urge your focus to wander. They do not ask for permission, they simply show up and take what you give them. That is why you must build the ability to protect and direct your attention when life gets noisy. Focus is not something you stumble upon, it is something you defend. When your attention is scattered, you can be busy all day and accomplish very little. You move from task to task, react to messages, respond to every small demand, and at the end of the day you feel tired but not satisfied. That fragmented experience is not work, it is dispersion. The people who make consistent progress are those who know how to identify what deserves their attention and keep returning to it until it is finished. They do not surrender their minds to the easiest or loudest options. They decide what matters, and then they protect that decision with consistent returns of focus. Understand that distractions tend to appear when your guard is down. They find you when you are bored, when you are tired, when you are frustrated, or when you simply want relief. The brain is wired to seek comfort, and comfort often masquerades as distraction. A quick scroll, a petty argument, a worry about something that will never happen, all of these feel relieving in the moment, but they steal momentum. They transform a day of potential into a day of drift. That is why awareness matters more than motivation. Motivation can come and go. Awareness gives you the chance to intercept your attention and choose where it goes. The first step in protecting focus is awareness. Notice where your mind goes during work. Pay attention to what pulls you away. Is it the phone buzzing? Is it a persistent internal story about inadequacy? Is it the habit of checking other people's lives? When you identify the pattern, you can respond with a system rather than with guilt. Without a system, you will respond with whatever is easiest and your attention will be handed away repeatedly. Build simple systems that guard your attention. Turn off non-essential notifications, create blocks of uninterrupted time, and use a brief ritual before starting work to anchor your mind. You might set a short calm countdown, breathe for a few deep breaths, and state your primary intention for the session. Small pre-work rituals cue the brain that it is time to focus and help reduce the number of times your attention will wander. When interruptions arise, have a plan for how to handle them, note them quickly and return to the task. The faster you return, the less power the interruption gets. The power of distraction is not that it appears, but that it holds you. Your job is to keep returns frequent and fast so the hold breaks. Not every interruption requires full engagement. Train yourself to evaluate interruptions without immediate reaction. Ask, does this require my attention now? Will it advance what I am doing? If the answer is no, delay it, delegate it, or remove it. Most interruptions are urgent only in appearance. Learning to set that boundary is not rude. It is responsible. You owe your attention to the priorities you set. You will have fewer regrets when your day reflects those priorities instead of reacting to the loudest voices. Emotional storms are among the most powerful attention thieves. A single strong feeling, anger, anxiety, embarrassment, can pull you out of the present and keep you there. When emotions surge, pause. Name the feeling and allow it a moment without supplying a narrative that makes it larger. Breathe and gently ask whether this emotion helps you take a useful step. If not, choose a small practical action that reorients you, a brief walk, a few deep breaths, a note on what must be done next. Emotions will not vanish, but you can prevent them from becoming a derailment. The practice is not suppression, it is direction. Feel the emotion, then decide whether you will let it run the day or you will return to your chosen focus. Part of protecting attention is protecting your environment. If your workspace invites noise and interruption, shift it. Remove tempting devices, set clear expectations with people around you about when you are available, and make your work time visible so others are less likely to interrupt it without cause. If you cannot control the environment completely, create microenvironments, use headphones, choose a seat with fewer distractions, or block a short period where you fully disconnect. Attention is finite. Treat it like currency and protect it with practical barriers. Another powerful strategy is to simplify your choices. The human brain spends energy on decisions. The more trivial decisions you face, the more depleted your attention becomes for meaningful work. Narrow the number of daily priorities to a few essential outcomes. When you reduce the number of things that need your focus, you reduce the opportunities for distraction to appear. One clear priority eclipses dozens of small tasks when what you want is meaningful progress. Decide what matters and direct your time there. Practice single tasking instead of multitasking. Jumping between tasks costs attention and increases the chance of errors. Focus on one high-impact task for a defined period and commit to finishing it or reaching a meaningful stopping point before switching. Use a timer if needed. Having a concrete finish line reduces the mind's impulse to drift. The satisfaction of completion reinforces the habit of focused work and weakens the pull of intermittent distractions. Do not weaponize guilt when you slip. You will lose focus sometimes. That is not failure, it is a normal human pattern. The skill is in how quickly you return. Cultivate a habit of gentle correction. When you notice a drift, say to yourself, "This happened, now I return." Make returning the reflex. Over time the reflex strengthens and the frequency of extended drifts declines. Your identity shifts from someone who is easily distracted to someone who reliably regains control. Protecting focus also means planning for recovery. Long stints of attention require replenishment. Schedule short breaks and do something different that refreshes your mind. Walk, stretch, hydrate, stare at a distant object, do what restores your attention rather than what depletes it. Most people seek distraction when they are tired. Instead, schedule purposeful recovery and you will reduce the impulse to seek relief through unproductive diversions. Be aggressive in choosing your inputs. The media you consume, the conversations you have, and the people you follow shape your default attention patterns. If your feed is a constant stream of shallow, sensational content, your brain becomes tuned to that rhythm. Replace low-quality input with material that supports sustained thinking, focused reading, thoughtful conversations, and content that deepens your understanding. Your attention will follow the quality of your inputs. When life forces you to respond to immediate issues, intervene with intention. Choose to respond from your values and priorities, not from anxiety or urgency alone. Decide whether the immediate demand should shift your day or whether you can handle it on its own timeline. You can act urgently without being frantic by keeping your anchor, the primary task you committed to in the morning. Let that anchor guide your response choices. In moments when distraction feels irresistible, remember the long-term costs of giving your attention away. Every time you surrender a block of focus time, you slow progress and increase future pressure. If you value momentum, you must protect the conditions that create it. The long view helps make short-term sacrifices easier. When you see each choice to return to focus as an investment in the future you are building, resisting distraction becomes easier. Controlling your focus is not an austere practice reserved for rare, extraordinary people. It is accessible to anyone willing to design their day around the choices that matter. Build simple defenses, train your reflex to return, and protect your environment and inputs. Over time your capacity for calm, deep attention will expand. You will be more productive, but more importantly, you will be more composed. You will show up for your work in the way that matters most, consistently, purposefully, and resiliently. That is how attention becomes a competitive advantage. That is how you create results that last. That is how you momentum audiobooks. Think of your thoughts like a vehicle you drive every day. Most people don't realize they are the driver. They let their thinking wander without direction, then wonder why their life ends up off course. One moment they are engaged and purposeful, the next, their mind is replaying old problems or fearing outcomes that are out of their control. When you do not guide your thinking deliberately, you end up reacting to whatever shows up. That pattern creates a life that drifts rather than one that moves toward an intentional destination. Directing your thoughts is essential. If you do not set a path, your mind will create one based on habit, emotion, or convenience. That path rarely leads to growth. It leads to repetition, worry, and the same unhelpful conclusions. Steering your thinking is like steering a car. You need both hands on the wheel, attention to the road ahead, and small corrections made early to avoid bigger detours later. The sooner you notice a thought pulling you toward fear, doubt, or distraction, the easier it is to redirect it. There will be moments throughout the day when your thoughts start sliding in the wrong direction, self-doubt after a mistake, comparison when someone else succeeds, anger after a conflict. In those moments you have a choice. You can let the slide continue, or you can intervene and turn toward a more useful thought. That is your responsibility. The longer you delay taking control, the more momentum the unhelpful thought gains. Catching it early keeps you in charge and preserves your energy for productive action. Most people operate on autopilot because they lack awareness. They do not ask why a thought has come, what it is trying to accomplish, or whether it serves their plans. Build awareness by pausing periodically and asking, what am I thinking right now? Is this taking me closer to what I want or pulling me away? These checkpoints give you power. Without them, thoughts run unchecked. With them, you become the driver again. Directing your thinking is not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is fine. It is about responding with clarity. When a problem appears, you can acknowledge it and then choose a thought that supports problem solving rather than defeat. You do not erase the emotion, you name it and then decide whether it will steer the next action or simply be observed. That separation, feeling versus following, is critical. You still feel fear or disappointment, but you do not let those feelings write the next chapter of your day. Create mental checkpoints. Pause 3 or 4 times a day and ask where your mind is. Are you thinking in ways that produce movement, or are you stuck in old loops? This habit trains your brain to interrupt automatic patterns and invites you to make small, corrective turns. The earlier you steer away from unhelpful thoughts, the less effort it takes. Over time, these small corrections compound into a default way of thinking that favors clarity and action. Clarity about your destination matters because you cannot steer toward what you do not see. Define who you want to become and what you are building. Use that clarity as a filter for the thoughts you allow. When a thought arises, pass it through that filter. Does this thought align with where I am going? If it does not, dismiss it and choose a thought that advances your direction. This simple habit is the difference between drifting through life and guiding it. Standards for your thinking are vital. Without a standard, you accept whatever appears. With a standard, you refuse certain mental patterns. Decide what kinds of thoughts you will not tolerate: rumination that leads nowhere, self-talk that undermines your confidence, comparisons that derail your momentum. When you set these boundaries, you give your mind fewer opportunities to sabotage you. You hold a mental standard as you would a code of conduct, and then you enforce it with the same consistency you would expect from someone you respect. Steering your thoughts also means practicing how to respond to setbacks. When something goes wrong, you will be tempted to replay it or catastrophize. Instead, practice shifting to solution-oriented thinking almost immediately. Ask, what is the next small step I can take? How can I learn from this? How does this shape the plan rather than stop it? These reframes do not remove the pain of disappointment, but they channel it into something constructive. Another practical technique is to prepare replacement thoughts in advance. Know a handful of useful phrases you can call upon when a negative pattern arises. Simple statements like "I can handle this," "this is a learning step," or "what's the next action?" help you turn focus away from paralysis and toward action. Having these ready reduces the mental lag between noticing a harmful thought and choosing a helpful one. Directing your thoughts is a skill that improves with feedback. Treat your mind like a lab. Try different questions, observe the outcomes, and refine what works. If you notice certain questions consistently lead you toward clarity, "What's the most useful thing I can do now?" make those your default responses. If certain lines of thinking always leave you drained, stop giving them airtime. Over time your brain learns which routes lead to progress and which lead to stalls. Remember that steering your mind is not a solitary moment but a continuous practice. You will drift. You will overcorrect. You will catch yourself late sometimes. That is part of learning to drive well. The key is persistence. Each corrective action strengthens your capacity to stay on course the next time. Each return builds confidence in your ability to guide your own thinking. Part of becoming a competent driver of thought is to accept responsibility for what you think. It is tempting to blame circumstances, other people, or your past. Those influences exist, but they do not have to dictate your mental route. You can acknowledge the facts without allowing them to determine your interpretation. That distinction is powerful because it frees you to create meaning rather than be created by it. Finally, do not confuse steering thought with suppressing emotion. Emotions convey information about what matters, but they do not have to determine your actions. Use feelings as data points. Let them inform you, but keep your hands on the wheel. Decide how to use the information they provide to direct the next step, and then move. Over time, you will become someone who feels deeply but chooses wisely, someone who leads the mind rather than being led by it. Directing your thoughts like you would steer a car is not optional if you want steady progress. It is the daily practice of catching the drift, choosing a better thought, and returning to your chosen path. With repetition, this practice becomes second nature. You gain clarity, conserve energy, and strengthen the inner control that creates real results. Keep driving. Keep choosing. Keep directing. That is how momentum becomes a built habit, and that is how you momentum audiobooks. Weak thinking arrives quietly. It does not knock. It slips in, whispers a version of the truth, and then grows if you let it. One moment you are moving forward, the next you hear the small voice saying you are not ready, you are not entitled, or this will fail. That voice sounds reasonable because it borrows the language of caution and protection. But its true aim is delay. It seeks to slow you, to nestle in your mind, and to grow into a pattern that shapes your days. If you allow those thoughts to repeat, they gain momentum and your actions slow. Your energy drops. Confidence erodes, and opportunities pass by. That is why weak thinking must be intercepted the second it appears. Do not argue with it. Weak thoughts are skilled at conversation, they want you to debate their legitimacy, which gives them time and oxygen. The faster you notice and shut them down, the less territory they win. When a thought tells you that you are not sufficient, respond quickly with clarity, this is not useful. This is not the direction I choose. Replace the line of thinking with something that reinforces your capacity, not with shallow cheerleading but with practical truth. For example, acknowledge the challenge and then name the next concrete step you can take. Action weakens the voice of doubt because it produces evidence. Doing something small disproves the narrative that you are stuck. Identify the moments when weak thinking commonly appears for you. For some people it comes before trying something new, for others it greets them after a setback, and for some it appears when they compare themselves to others. Learn your pattern. Study it. When you know where it typically starts, you can prepare a quick response and reduce its power. Preparation changes the dynamic from surprise to routine. You no longer get caught off guard, you greet the thought with a practiced refusal and a redirect toward what serves you. Weak thinking often masquerades as protection. It will say things like, be cautious, avoid risk. That can sound responsible, but too much caution becomes paralysis. Use discernment, respect warnings that are grounded in data and experience, but reject those that are born from fear, repetition, or past hurts that no longer reflect present reality. Ask whether the thought advances action or merely prevents it. If the latter, do not keep it. Choose instead a thought that builds courage through manageable steps. Build a few core truths you can return to when doubt arrives. These should be personal, honest, and grounded in reality. They are not slogans but observations. I have solved hard problems before, I learn quickly, small steps compound. When weak thinking attempts to hijack your attention, say one of these truths and then act in a way that proves it. Repetition of this cycle, truth, action, evidence, replaces a fragile mind with one that trusts its capacities. Over time the truth becomes stronger than the doubt, and your default mental posture shifts from tentative to steady. Do not confuse refusing weak thinking with denying feelings. Emotions are part of being human and they convey information about what matters. If you feel fear, name it. If you feel shame, acknowledge it. But then decide whether the emotion deserves the helm. Feeling something is not the same as letting that feeling decide your next move. Observe the emotion like a passing weather pattern and then choose your response. That separation creates power. You feel, you notice, and you act from intention rather than being swept away by reaction. Keep moving. Weak thinking thrives when you stall. Overthinking allows it to gather strength. Action, even imperfect action, breaks the spell. Choose a small, visible step you can take immediately and take it. The act of moving changes the chemistry of your thinking. It converts worry into learning and transforms hesitation into evidence of capability. Each completed step makes the next one easier because it builds proof inside your life. Progress does not have to be heroic. It only needs to be consistent. Momentum follows motion. Set boundaries with people who perpetually feed doubt without offering constructive challenge. Some people will test your goals and respond with skepticism that sounds like concern but comes from their own limited expectations. You do not need to defend every choice to skeptics. Protect your mental space by limiting exposure to voices that repeatedly chip away at your belief. Surround yourself with those who question from a place of respect and curiosity, not from a need to keep you small. The right kind of challenge sharpens you, the wrong kind drains you. When a weak thought appears, use a technique of immediate replacement. Catch it, label it, and swap it for a productive alternative. For instance, change "I can't handle this" to "What is the smallest next step I can take?" Change "I'm not ready" to "What action would move me closer to readiness?" Over time these substitutions become automatic and the mental reflex to worry loses its force. You do not eliminate the possibility of negative thoughts, but you do reduce their capacity to shape your choices. Guard your story. Your internal narrative guides more of your life than external events. A recurring self-narrative of limitation will predict your actions just as surely as a narrative of growth will. Re-author the story you tell about yourself by adding episodes of progress, lessons learned, and moments of resilience. Keep a record of wins, however small. When doubt arises, consult that record. It is a factual counterpoint to the exaggerated claims of fear. Remember that weak thinking compounds quietly. It is not one dramatic defeat but a series of small concessions. Each concession becomes a precedent for the next. To stop the slide, stop giving those concessions. Make refusal immediate and uncompromising. Apply consistent practice. When you notice a weakening thought, interrupt it, replace it, and move. The routine becomes a habit. The habit becomes identity. You become someone who does not allow doubt to linger, who meets fear with a plan, and who chooses action over analysis when it matters. Finally, practice patience with yourself. Growth takes time. You will not be immune to weak thinking overnight. There will be days when the old patterns return with force. When that happens, do not treat it as failure. Treat it as feedback. Return to your simple practices, notice, replace, act, and keep going. The discipline of consistent returns builds mental muscle. Over time the default mode of your thinking shifts from tentative to deliberate. Your inner voice will change from undermining commentary to strategic guidance, and the life that emerges from that shift will be steadier, more productive, and truer to your intent. Reject weak thinking the moment it appears, not as an act of denying reality but as a commitment to use your mental energy for building rather than shrinking. Protect your attention, prepare your responses, act quickly, and record your wins. Through repetition you will rewire your mind into one that favors action and clarity. In that place, doubt loses its momentum and your decisions gain force. That is how mental toughness forms. That is how you grow. Belief is a powerful engine inside your mind. It determines how you interpret events, how you speak to yourself, and ultimately how you act. Yet most people never intentionally choose their beliefs. They accept the ones given to them by family, culture, failure, or fear. Those unexamined beliefs can limit what you try and what you achieve. That is why you must decide what to believe and then protect that belief deliberately. Belief is not a passive feeling, it is an active choice that shapes every decision you make. Start by asking a clear question: what do I truly want to believe about myself and my future? Choose beliefs that support growth and resilience rather than ones that keep you safe inside a smaller life. Do you accept the idea that progress comes from consistent effort? Do you believe you can learn what you need to learn? Do you choose to see setbacks as data rather than proof of incapacity? These sorts of beliefs change how you move through challenges. Once selected, treat them as commitments you will defend, even when the evidence around you seems to contradict them. Beliefs do not remain strong without care. Daily life contains forces that chip away at conviction, skeptical voices, discouraging events, and your own internal critic. If you do not actively protect your belief, it will erode slowly. That erosion starts with small concessions, paying more attention to critics than to your plan, accepting a narrative that you are not ready, or allowing a failure to define you. One concession leads to another until the original belief is gone. Prevent that by creating routines that reinforce what you chose to believe. One practical routine is to make your belief visible. Write it down where you will see it each morning. Speak it aloud. Add it to a short set of reminders that you return to during the day. Visibility prevents forgetfulness and reframes doubts as temporary intrusions rather than facts. When doubt arrives, read what you decided to believe and treat that page as an anchor that steadies your mind back toward action. Another way to defend belief is to nurture proof. Belief grows when it is fed by evidence, even small evidence. Every time you take a step that aligns with your belief, you generate data that supports it. Complete a short task that moves you toward your goal, and your belief becomes a little stronger. Over time, these micro-wins accumulate into a robust conviction that is hard to overturn. If you wait for overwhelming proof before you believe, you will rarely act. Instead, believe enough to move, and let the outcomes you produce build the rest. Protect your belief by curating your influences. People who constantly dismiss your goals or reduce your confidence are not neutral, they shape your mental environment. Seek companions who respect your vision and push you constructively. Tune your media consumption toward material that informs and challenges you, not toward content that undermines your resolve. The signals you allow into your mind set the baseline for what you consider possible. Be deliberate about those signals. Be prepared for tests. Belief is most likely to falter under pressure. When results stall or criticism arrives, your first instinct may be to shrink your conviction. Anticipate these moments and decide how you will respond. Will you revisit your plan and adjust based on learning? Will you seek advice from trusted mentors? Will you anchor yourself in the reasons why you began? Having a pre-decided response reduces the risk of panic or resignation. Tests are not failures, they are opportunities to choose your belief again and deepen it. Practice the discipline of selective attention. Your mind will offer proof for and against almost every belief you hold. The difference between a weak belief and a strong one is where you place your attention. Focus on the evidence that supports the belief you choose and examine the counter-evidence with curiosity rather than surrender. Ask, what does this mean and what can I learn? How does this inform my next step? This approach converts setbacks into information rather than into a verdict. Cultivate internal authority. You do not need everyone's endorsement to hold a belief. In fact, seeking universal approval often dilutes your conviction. The most durable beliefs come from a source inside you: values, long-term goals, and personal experiences of competence. When your belief is anchored internally, external fluctuations have less power to unmoor you. That does not mean you ignore useful criticism, but you weigh it rather than letting it override your chosen direction. Balance realism and optimism. Choosing a belief does not require denial of difficulty. It requires a stance that accepts reality and still commits to action. Choose beliefs that are both grounded and enabling. I can learn the skills needed, this setback provides insight, my consistency will compound. Such beliefs keep you honest about obstacles while refusing to let them dictate your identity or decision-making. Use rituals to repeat your belief. Short daily practices, journaling a success, reading a reminder, speaking a declaration, reinforce conviction. Rituals are the scaffolding that prevents belief from being an occasional sentiment and makes it an everyday practice. Over time, these actions build a mental architecture that supports choice under pressure. When belief falters, return to evidence. Keep a log of instances where your chosen belief led to positive outcomes. On hard days, review that log. Seeing repeated evidence that contradicts your doubt is a powerful counterweight. If you do not have enough evidence yet, create a plan for immediate, testable actions that can generate it. Do not ask for proof that will never come. Instead, design experiments that produce data and shift probabilities in your favor. Remember that belief affects not just what you attempt but how you persist. Two people with the same skill set will act differently if one believes they can improve and the other does not. Belief determines whether you view obstacles as temporary or permanent, whether you attribute failure to a lack of effort or to unchangeable traits. Choose interpretations that empower future action rather than trap you in excuses. Finally, celebrate the moments belief serves you. Acknowledge when choosing a belief led you to act and when action produced a result. These celebrations are not self-indulgent, they are reinforcement. They tell your brain that the investment in belief is worthwhile. Over time, those positive feedback loops make holding strong beliefs feel more natural. Choosing what to believe and protecting that belief is not passive hope. It is a disciplined practice of selection, reinforcement, and action. It requires awareness of the influences around you, preparation for tests, and the creation of routines that feed conviction. When you treat belief as a resource to steward, you transform it from a fragile feeling into a sustaining force that guides daily decisions, fuels resilience, and directs consistent progress. True discipline shows itself when no one is watching. The real measure of your mindset is not how you act under applause or during visible success but how you behave in private moments when there is no audience, no reward, and no external pressure. That quiet consistency is what shapes long-term results. Discipline is not a performance, it is an internal agreement you keep with yourself day after day, especially when energy is low and excuses sound convincing. When no one is watching, your thoughts can become permissive. They offer comfort, rationalizations, and easier alternatives. They tell you that skipping a session this morning is acceptable because you deserve rest, or that postponing a difficult conversation is wiser because no one will notice. Those small concessions accumulate. They form a pattern where comfort trumps commitment and where identity becomes built from what you tolerate in solitude. If you want a different life, you must be willing to hold yourself to a higher standard even when there is no external validation. Discipline in private begins with clear standards. Define what you will and will not allow in your thinking and your behavior. These standards are not about rigid self-judgment but about creating a framework that guides small choices. Decide what habits you will protect, what routines you will honor, and what language you will use in your private dialogue. When you set clear rules for yourself, the mind finds it easier to act in alignment because you remove ambiguity about acceptable choices. Daily routines are the backbone of private discipline. Establish a morning rhythm that signals to your brain that you are choosing action. Follow through with short, consistent practices when attention is available. Commit to brief blocks of focused work, to deliberate practice, and to small actions that compound over time. The value of these behaviors is not immediately obvious in the moment, but their cumulative effect is decisive. Doing the right thing when no one sees it builds a reputation inside yourself that you can trust. Another element of sustaining discipline is how you speak to yourself when you falter. Private moments often involve slips, missed workouts, half-finished tasks, or a late-night surrender to distraction. The critical question is not whether you stumble but how you respond. Shame and self-judgment tend to immobilize. Instead, practice a corrective approach, name what happened, accept it without drama, and plan a clear next step. That response trains your mind to recover quickly and prevents small setbacks from turning into long derailments. The habit of returning fast is itself a form of discipline. Holding discipline privately means managing the temptations that target solitude. Comfort-seeking behaviors thrive in isolation because nobody is there to witness their cost. You must design your environment to reduce the friction of good choices. Remove easy access to distractions, create visible reminders of your commitments, and set boundaries with yourself about when and how you will engage in leisure. Environmental design is not about punishment, it is about removing unnecessary friction between your intention and your action. The fewer barriers to doing what matters, the more reliably you will do it. Self-accountability replaces the absent audience. Create small feedback loops you check on periodically. These can be short written reflections, micro-goals logged each day, or a simple tally of actions completed. External accountability is useful, but private discipline often requires internal systems. When you build a consistent habit of honest review, you cultivate a relationship with yourself built on reliability. You learn to trust your own word, which has a transformative effect on confidence and long-term performance. Discipline also involves choosing discomfort deliberately. Growth rarely happens inside comfort zones. When no one is watching, you decide whether to tolerate short discomfort for long-term gain. That might mean doing a hard training set after a long day, writing when the energy is low, or making a difficult but necessary phone call. These acts are not glamorous, but their accumulation defines the person you become. The quieter the context, the more pure the test of your commitment, because there is no social reward to mask the choice. Balance is crucial. Discipline is not constant exertion, it includes rest that is both earned and intentional. Rest that follows real effort restores capacity and prevents burnout. Lazy rest is avoidance, earned rest is strategic. Make rest part of your disciplined routine so that it supports continued performance rather than enabling stagnation. The discipline of recovery, scheduling it, guarding it, and treating it as part of your system, keeps you sustainable over the long run. Another aspect of private discipline is clarity of purpose. When you know why a task matters, it becomes easier to show up for it without external applause. Purpose provides intrinsic motivation and reduces the need for constant external incentives. Connect everyday actions to the larger vision you hold for your life. When the immediate task is aligned to a broader purpose, it gains meaning and becomes easier to complete consistently in private. Practice small, measurable actions as proof of discipline. Show up for 5 minutes of focused work when motivation is absent. Do one stretch, one page of writing, or one phone call that moves a project forward. Small proofs slowly build internal credibility. Each time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. Over weeks and months, those small acts compound into major progress. That is the quiet power of discipline when no one watches. Develop private rituals that signal commitment. A simple pre-work ritual, a minute of deep breathing, a short declaration of intent, or a visible action that marks the start of focus time, acts as a psychological cue that brings your attention to the task. Rituals reduce decision fatigue and create consistency by automating the start of disciplined behavior. The physical or mental action marks a transition from idle to intentional, and repeating it strengthens the association. Avoid perfectionism as an enemy of privacy-driven discipline. Waiting for ideal conditions or a perfect mood undermines progress. Discipline is about showing up and doing the work, imperfectly, until the work itself improves your capacity and the conditions follow. The habit of beginning is more valuable than the myth of perfectly executed sessions. Prioritize starting over waiting for flawless alignment. When you cultivate discipline in private, you also build resilience for public pressures. The confidence that stems from consistent private work allows you to perform under scrutiny because you know what you have done when no one was looking. That internal bank of effort becomes the foundation of legitimate confidence that is not dependent on external validation. Finally, remember that private discipline is a practice, not a final state. You will fail at times, and that is part of the process. The relevant metric is not flawless performance but steady improvement and quick recovery. Keep the agreements you make with yourself, review them honestly, and refine your systems as you learn. Over time, private discipline becomes a character trait rather than a chore, it becomes the quiet engine that powers your public success. Build the life that matches your intentions by doing the hard things when no one watches. Create standards, design your environment, practice quick recovery from slips, and connect daily acts to purpose. This is how consistency becomes a habit, how reliability becomes identity, and how your private work translates into lasting results. That is discipline. That is leadership over yourself. Think like the person you aim to become. Everything you build, every goal you chase, and every habit you form begins with your thinking. If your thoughts remain tied to the version of yourself that doubts, hesitates, or plays small, your actions will mirror that limited view and your results will follow. The only way to change the outer life consistently is to change the inner scene first. Decide today to think from the level of the future you and carry that mindset into each hour, not only when it feels comfortable but especially when it doesn't. This begins with clarity. Paint a detailed picture of the person you want to be. What habits do they hold? How do they respond under pressure? How do they treat other people and themselves? How do they spend their time, and what are their priorities? The more vivid the image, the easier it is to use it as a guiding reference when decisions arrive. Thinking like that person isn't pretending, it's aligning your present choices with the destination you intend to reach. Once you have that mental model, compare your current thinking to it. When a thought does not match the future version of you, let it go and replace it with one that does. Adopting that future vantage point requires practice because your default thoughts will keep pulling you back to the present patterns that created your current results. Training your thinking is like strengthening a muscle. You will feel awkward, you will overcorrect, and you will sometimes fail. That is part of the process. Each time you catch a weak thought mid-sentence and substitute a stronger one, you add a repetition to the neural pathways of the person you want to become. Over time, those repetitions change how naturally you think, and your behavior follows. One practical method is to ask the questions the future you would ask. When faced with a difficult choice, pause and ask, what would the person I want to be do right now? How would they handle this obstacle? What would they focus on? These questions steer your mind toward practical, elevated responses rather than default reactions. They give your thinking a new habit to practice. Use them daily until they become automatic reflexes. Language matters. The words you use inside your head shape the lens through which you see possibilities. Swap vague, uncertain phrases for direct, action-oriented statements. Replace I hope with I will. Replace maybe later with today I will take a step. Replace I can't with I will learn how. This is not about insisting on false certainty but about framing thoughts in ways that invite movement. Thought patterns that emphasize agency and learning produce different behaviors than patterns rooted in passivity and fear. Aligning thought with identity also requires guarding your environment. Who you spend time with and what you consume influence your baseline thinking. If you surround yourself with people who default to doubt or smallness, your mind will take on those tones. If your feed is filled with drama and distraction, your thinking will begin to match that rhythm. Be intentional about who and what you allow into your mental space. Seek people who model the mindset you desire and consume material that stretches your thinking sustainably. The mind reflects the inputs it receives. Another critical aspect is to act like the future you would act before you feel like it. Belief and confidence often grow through action, not before it. Waiting to feel ready is the easiest way to delay indefinitely. Instead, decide to think and behave at a higher level now and allow the experiences to build the confidence you seek. Small actions taken consistently from that elevated mindset are the bridge between who you are now and who you want to become. Practice self-editing in real time. Catch the language that undercuts your potential, words like should've, I wish, or I can't, and replace them immediately with constructive alternatives. When you notice yourself explaining or excusing, pause and try a different sentence that reflects ownership and possibility. This real-time editing trains your internal voice to become an ally instead of a critic, and the cumulative effect changes how you move through your day. Develop standards that belong to the future you and hold yourself accountable to them. These standards are not about perfection but about a baseline of behavior that supports your growth. Choose a few non-negotiables, timely responses to important tasks, deliberate practice sessions, consistent rest routines, and defend them with the same zeal you would defend an appointment with a mentor. Standards provide a practical way to measure whether your actions match the thoughts you claim to hold. When obstacles appear, protect your thinking by running structured responses rather than falling into improvisation or despair. Pre-plan small rituals or scripts for moments of pressure, the 3-breath reset, a quick question like what is the most useful next step? Or a short list of accomplishments to read when doubt shows up. These micro-routines give you a predictable way to return to composure and continue acting from the mindset you are building. Be mindful of the stories you tell yourself about setbacks. The future you reframes failures as feedback and learning opportunities. When something doesn't go as planned, ask what the data is actually telling you, what the smallest next action is, and what can be adjusted. This shift from personalization to curiosity transforms obstacles into steps of growth and keeps your thinking oriented toward progress rather than paralysis. The long view is essential. Thinking like the person you want to become includes accepting delayed rewards and resisting instant validation. It means making choices today that may not bring immediate applause but will compound over months and years into substantial results. Keep a horizon in mind. Remind yourself regularly why the small daily acts add up. A clear horizon protects your mind from the short-term noise that seeks to derail long-term efforts. Practice gratitude for the process itself. The person you become is formed in repetition, not in a single victory. Recognizing small wins and the discipline of showing up honors the work and reinforces the identity you are cultivating. Gratitude changes your internal feedback loop from scarcity to abundance, which helps sustain persistence through the inevitable dips. Balance ambition with compassion. Thinking like the future you doesn't require harshness toward your present self. It requires consistent correction with patience. When you stumble, treat the correction like coaching, not punishment. Speak to yourself in a way that encourages the next small step rather than inflicting shame. Compassion is not a substitute for accountability, it is what sustains long-term effort by preventing burnout and self-sabotage. Measure progress in both outcomes and processes. Outcomes matter, but the person you become is a product of daily practices. Keep track of process metrics that reflect your standards, how often you took deliberate action, how consistently you returned to focus, how many days you honored your morning reset. These metrics make the intangible work of mindset visible and encourage continuation through small wins. Finally, recognize that thinking like your future self is a creative and iterative act. You will refine the model of who you want to become as you grow. New experiences will change priorities, and that is healthy. Stay flexible in the details but firm in the direction. Update your internal script when evidence suggests an improvement and stay resolute when tests demand consistency. The mental architecture you build today becomes the platform for your tomorrow. If you decide to think at a higher level now, practice it repeatedly, and protect that thought pattern from the everyday noise that tempts regression, you will accelerate the formation of new habits and new results. Over time your inner dialogue will reflect the person you envisioned, your behavior will follow, and your life will align with that improved view. This is not a promise of easy days. It is a promise that your thinking can be trained to serve you, that consistent mental work creates structural change, and that small, disciplined choices compound into meaningful outcomes. Keep choosing thoughts that belong to the person you want to be. Keep taking actions that prove those thoughts. As you do, your identity will shift and your results will follow. That is how lasting change is made.